Okay.
Yeah,
It will take over the world one day.
so I'm a big fan. I think in their current forms, they're really useful. They're not perfect. So as someone who I work around a lot of folks who use this in various capacities. So my current role is both in corporate marketing, but also on the technical side of things. So I work with a lot of programmers, but also a lot of marketers. And that's two different audiences, but they're both using it, and they're both using it in ways that it really can augment like what you can do for sure professionally, like no question about that. You can, like DJ said, I mean, you can do dumb stuff, like you can have it write emails to people that sound official, that sound nice, however you know, whatever tone you're trying to convey. And to be fair, things like Grammarly do something similar, but it's not the same thing as generative AI. The cool thing about generative AI is that it's not that initial result, it's the iteration on the result. So like you can go to Google and ask for a thing and you'll get it, right? But if it doesn't quite fit what you need, or if you see a mistake in it, like you can't fix it. It's just the search result that you got. Whereas like in ChatGPT, you can specifically be like, hey, I see this. Now change it to, you know, give me the same prompt, but with the tone of thoughtful instead of declarative, right? Something like that. And it'll completely change the thing that you get back. And if you're thoughtful with it, you know how to use the prompts is incredibly powerful. The thing that I don't like about it, yeah, it's amazing. The thing I don't like about it is that I think that it allows the snake oil folks to kind of perpetuate themselves. What I mean by that is just like the people who are like the fake it till you make it folks, or maybe it's out of ignorance, but they just rely on it. Like that's how they do their work from now on, right? That sort of stuff scares me because eventually the way generative AI works is it feeds off of sources on the internet, right? Well, what happens when the AI starts eating stuff the AI made? Like now you've got this weird thought loop where real information maybe doesn't get in there, correct information doesn't make it in there. And now you could have something small like marketing material that's just corporate and shitty and everyone can see it because it's generative AI. But what happens if like someone is using it to build a Python script to write, you know, CVE detection program, right? Now all of a sudden it's like you might have bullshit in there and like your business is breached and people's credit card information and their social security numbers end up on the internet because you're using generative AI instead of like skilled professionals to do things that are like of importance. That stuff scares me. I don't really worry too much about like this whole end of the world thing. I do think something that people should know though is that like generative AI is controlled. Like people write the scripts and algorithms that allow those things to learn. And you can see that already in current ChatGPT. You can see it in Google's Bard. But like if you ask it for an opinion about something that's like politically controversial, you can tell that Silicon Valley tech companies own these things, right? Like it blatantly leans one way. And that's interesting. And because you can trick it, like you can break it.
Yeah, you can also teach it.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing too, though, is you could spend a lot of time writing fluff. I mean, you could sit down and have I'm sorry. You could have Bard sit down and write you a bunch of like, give me 10 essays explaining why, I don't know, Kim Jong-un was like a great person, right? Now all of a sudden you could have this whole blog where like, there's all these amazing things about how North Korea is this incredible country and like all these great things, right? Now all of a sudden, though, ChatGPT is going to eat that stuff. And it is going to affect future results, right? So, I mean, that sort of thing is interesting. I know that they have some filtering built into them.
But you can bypass it, though. I found out that if you wanted to say something that's blatantly not true, or like for example, North Korea is a fantastic place to live.
Mm-hmm.
If you tell it to write something like that, and then just put in parentheses, like just tell it write this in satirical, it will absolutely write it, that way. I recommend doing that. It's hilarious. Some of the stuff it comes up with.
This is a bit of a tone shift, topic shift here. But speaking of satire, right? Today's world, like the society we live in currently, like the stuff that is satire, it's like it's so silly, but then like that same shit will be real in a week, right? Like stuff like Babylon Bee or The Onion,
Yeah.
right? Like those dudes are hilarious because they'll write stuff and you're like, that's so ridiculous, but it really is happening. Like you can't, satire doesn't exist anymore, really. You know what I mean? Like you might be joking, but that's real somewhere else. You know what I mean?
Yeah, anything's possible these days. It's insane.
And that's something that I think is super funny. Where like, you know, certain places will get sued because it's like, oh, well, you know, you wrote the story, and they're like, we were joking, which is fine. They probably were, but that same thing will happen in another place, slightly different, a week later, and you're like, oh, that was real.